So it is a painting of Paradise Lost. It is a painting of everything that is in our way and hiding us, even hiding us from ourselves. Welcome to Ostracon, a podcast that translates fragments into the whole from which they came. Today, we're talking about a painting titled Son of Man by the surrealist artist René Magritte. Magritte was Belgian. He was born in 1898 and lived until 1967. He's the painter of many thought-provoking and paradoxical works. Not only the one we're talking about today, but his self-portrait, works like The Human Condition, The Empire of Light, and other works that I hope we'll have a chance to talk about in this series. You've probably seen this painting before, though you may not have known its title. The painting is of what looks to be a businessman in a coat and tie and a bowler hat, standing in front of a nondescript, flat coastline with an apple in front of his face. To some, the painting suggests a facelessness, a sort of person who's nothing more than a cog in the machine, who doesn't have a face, who has been absorbed into the mechanization of society. And while that may be something that we struggle against, I think that the title of the painting, along with the deliberate choice of a fruit obscuring the subject's identity, indicate that this painting tells us something deeper. First, let's begin with the term Son of Man, which is a rich term and an interesting title for this work. Son of Man has two, at least, meanings. First, simply human, born of other humans. But also, from the time of the prophets, Son of Man was associated with an expected Messiah, one who was to come. And so it has a dual meaning, both who we are and who is to save us. This dual meaning of the term is like to the dual nature of Christ, who later claims to be the Son of Man, and is both human and divine, both of them complete and undiminished and unmingled, but one together. Next, let's take a look at the fruit, which in the context that has been set up for this painting now, it seems can most appropriately be interpreted as the infamous fruit of the choices of Adam and Eve. While there's lots and lots that could be said about the early chapters of Genesis, the essential thing for this analysis is the meaning of the fruit that they choose to eat. At its most fundamental level, the choice to eat the fruit is a selfish choice. It's a choice to put the desires of the self above God. It's an acceptance, or at least an act upon, the lie that life, eternal life, the garden, peace, love with one another, fruitfulness, the provisions of life, were somehow not the free gifts that they were, but were instead some kind of a great concealment. Rather than accept creation as a free gift and live in a relationship of gratitude with God, they wish to be gods themselves, to have it on their own terms, to be in control, to make their own determinations of good and evil. The result in Genesis, and by the way, I go into this detail because all of this is imported into the painting by the deliberate choice of fruit obscuring the identity of the subject. The consequences in Genesis are that the choices of humanity affect the fabric of creation by, in effect, untethering creation from God, removing God from its center, and instead placing themselves at its center, that they changed the fabric of what was. And, according to Genesis, suffering results. Now this fruit, this choice, this consequence is brought into the painting, and of any of the places that it might be, it is most impactfully right in front of the face of the subject. The face being the way that you would identify the subject. It is the part of the painting that most immediately identifies who the person is. And that identity is exactly what is hidden by the fruit. So it is a painting of paradise lost. It is a painting of everything that is in our way and in front of our eyes and confusing and distracting and hiding us, even hiding us from ourselves. It is representative of the fact that everyone, every day, faces the same conflicts as Adam and Eve in Genesis, the choice whether to live for ourselves, to live for some false idol, or to live for something that is greater than ourselves, to live for God. The exercise of that choice, even the painful preoccupation with the choice, can obscure who we really are. Certainly, the results of the choice and the confusion and the sense of loss that we all struggle with obscures our identity, obscures the fullness of life for which we are intended. The human person, in cooperation with God, sort of continues this creation story out of this circumstance. We continue to make ourselves day by day in the choices we make, what we do with our talents, trying to get behind this obscuring fruit and find ourselves and find our direction. So I think it is meaningful that this obscured individual is set in front of these nondescript flat waters, which also harken back to the creation stories, where before anything is made, there is a flat, motionless nothing. Darkness covered the abyss, while a mighty wind swept over the waters. So the painting suggests this, the human person, the choices of the day, are the place of creation, that the person, although in its current state obscured, sits here in front of the void of the motionless waters, to be made, to be realized out of this condition. So there are then three ways, and I'm sure more, that we can take this painting when we look at it. One is as a self-portrait. It is us, and may help reveal to us the preoccupations that are covering our own face. You know, the interesting thing about the apple in front of the eyes is not only can we not identify the subject of the painting, but when the fruit is in front of the face, the subject can't see out either. And so if it is a self-portrait, it's sort of a double self-portrait in that the preoccupations with the self especially as idol, not only prevent the ability for us to see ourselves, but also prevent our ability to look out to see the rest of creation. This then leads to a second way of seeing the painting, which is that it's a painting of others. That in our relationships with them day to day, in the work that we do professionally, personally, we can never lose track of their human identity. Part of the results of the choices of Adam and Eve in Genesis are their requirement that they till the soil in order to survive, that they have to work for it. And in some sense, labor is a beautiful thing when it is a realization of the human person and an expression of virtue and beauty. On the other hand, the daily grind can be a struggle. And when our work requires us to deal with and make decisions about other individuals and the lives of others, they can never be reduced to the level of this question, to the knowledge of good and evil, to be arbitrated by us in some final and passing way as we go about the business of life. That would be the fruit obscuring their identity. And I think the painting calls out to us to remove as best we can from our own perceptions that obscuring fruit and to see them as beautiful individuals with dignity in the image of God. Lastly, returning to the title of the painting, Son of Man, you can see it in a third way, which is a calling out to the Son of Man. In a sense, I'm holding up to you, Christ, this condition in which I find myself. I'm calling out, remove the fruit and reveal me.